We have been on the shores of the Galilee.
We have, yes.
Where Jesus invited fishermen to join him and become fishermen of people, to join him in the making of disciples and the calling of people to be disciples. And then we read of Jesus taking these disciples on fishing trips with him, fishing for people. And they come to Capernaum.
Okay.
And Jesus arrives in Capernaum. You have the stories in Mark chapter 1 and 2. They went to Capernaum, and when Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue.
Right.
And began to teach. Now, this is a 4th century after the time of Jesus' synagogue. The rocks, of course, underneath have not been excavated, but you do see evidence of a different kind of rock that is used beneath another structure underneath this. And it's very likely this was the synagogue of the time of Jesus.
So this has been built on what potentially could be another synagogue.
That's right.
A little closer to the time of Jesus.
So that could be the synagogue from the time of Jesus. Certainly here in Capernaum there was a synagogue, and Jesus taught as one who had authority, commanding evil spirits to come out of a man, right, in the synagogue in the synagogue. And then they left the synagogue, so they went out into the residential area of Capernaum. We are right beside the lake, and they go out into the residential area, and we have where the archaeologists have excavated homes from the time of Jesus. You'll notice that there are black stones, so these are basalt stones, a volcanic area, especially on the other side of the lake. And Jesus goes to the home of Peter and the home of Peter's mother-in-law, and he heals Peter's mother-in-law on that Sabbath day. And then after the Sabbath, large numbers of people come. And here in the Gospel of Mark, we read of Jesus ministering in this area, taking these 4 disciples that he's called into a closer relationship with himself. He's not yet called the 12. He's walked beside the sea. And then you read of Jesus going back beside the sea again, calling these men again to walk with him and become fishermen of people. So Capernaum really figured large in the story of Jesus during this ministry training and expanded ministry phase. He's walking through this territory, preaching the good news of the kingdom, doing the work of the temple, healing people, forgiving people, all up and down through all the towns and the villages of Galilee, the region of Galilee.
Do we have any idea of, I mean, we see the ruins of a house. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of everyday living?
Yes.
Did the house have just one room? Were there a couple of rooms? We've heard earlier that sometimes there was a place for animals. What do we know about first century housing?
Just over in this area, we have a house with steps up the side, most likely leading onto the roof. The houses were small, the windows were very, very small, so it was quite dark inside. And the way in which Jesus spoke of houses, he mentioned the darkness inside a house, the light outside. There were steps onto the roof.
And there's temporary roof covering or something?
The roof was a permanent roof, but it would have had timbers, with earth, with maybe date palm on the top and some more soil.
Would there have been a courtyard connected with it too? Maybe where there's, I'm thinking about the story of the paralytic and the individual that took him out. Then they've removed the.
They would have removed that roof.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Now that's an interesting story, because in the Gospel it actually says they knew that Jesus had come home.
Right.
Capernaum was his home at that stage. This was the house where he lived. They knew he'd come home, and they wanted to bring this man to him, but the place was crowded because Jesus was seated in the house teaching. Probably a fairly small house, and he's crowded in this house. And then they go up the steps onto the roof of the house.
Showing the importance of friends, I think.
Yes, building relationships.
Building relationships.
Building relationships.
People taking care of people.
So this gives us a good idea of the nature of the homes, the communities. Capernaum was a town situated right on the Via Maris, and the population believed to have been about 5,000. So it was much bigger than Nazareth. Jesus moved to this place for strategic purpose. to be closer to where the people who were showing great potential as disciples and leaders were, to equip them more and to take them into the next level of being disciples.